May I be free from greed, hate, and delusion. May I be full of self-sacrifice, love, and understanding. I charge my heart, which is now temporarily pure, with thoughts of loving kindness. I charge every cell of my being with thoughts of loving kindness. I build a happy, healthy aura of loving kindness around me, that no wicked thought or evil intention can penetrate. Now I am protected. I now send forth thoughts of loving kindness to all beings and creatures, to everything animate and inanimate, to everything that has taken rise in consciousness, and to everything still in its causal state. I send forth these thoughts around me, around my dwelling, around my district, around the continent, around the world. Loving kindness to all, loving kindness to all. Around the universe, loving kindness to all. Around the cosmos, loving kindness to all. Loving kindness to all who dwell above, and loving kindness to those who dwell below. May all beings and creatures, and everything animate and inanimate, and everything that has reached consciousness, and everything still in its causal state, may all be happily minded. May none hurt each other in anger and in ill will. May their minds be wholesome. May all have sufficient for their needs. May all be fortunate enough to encounter the Dharma. Humbly, I accept the loving thoughts of everyone in return, none excluded. And now I share the benefit of this meditation with everyone. So just close your eyes for a moment and ask yourself the question, what is love? And let whatever comes to you come. So love can be lots of things. And in fact, Swami Radha in the Kundalini Yoga for the West encourages us right at the beginning to think about love and to really think about what we mean by it. And she gives us some examples to get us going, such as attachment, kindness, sexual attraction, empathy, expectation, meeting needs, pleasing. But she said, think about it for yourself. And I recently circulated a couple of videos on Facebook, if those of you who follow Facebook, where Radhananda talks about love. And she talks about living in community and being willing to speak and to open our hearts and to listen and to hear. So there's a whole variety of answers you might have come up with. And I wanted this evening for you, this lunchtime for us, to focus particularly on Swami Radha's last message. And if you can see it, some of you may already remember this magazine that came out in the mid-90s when Swami Radha died. And in that, there was her last message. And what she said was, if you'll grant me one last wish, it is this: stay together, love one another, support this work and the ashram in the spirit it was started. So now we have two questions on the table straight away from her. What's love for one another? And what does it mean to stay together? And that idea of staying together is really rooted in the yoga tradition. I don't think she said things like this by accident, if you like. And the tradition of yoga involved people gathering together in the shade of a tree for instruction, for spiritual instruction. And in the Hidden Language book, the paragraph on the tree pose actually ends with the words, spiritual people are wise to stand together, communicating, chanting, meditating under a tree. Well, we're not under a tree now, but we are participating in Satsang. And Satsang is the company of the wise. It's coming together to meditate and chant and share spiritual inspiration. And of course, we're at an ashram at the moment, and that's the purpose of the ashram, coming together to practice yoga, to be a spiritual community together. And again, the idea of the Radha House was the teachers would work from that centre. They'd all share one pot. After the expenses, the money would go into a pot. And we've still got our little pot. So just like the ashram, we cover our expenses, and then what's left can go towards the teachings. But since that time, the teachings have moved into studios as well as homes, so things have moved along. And Radhananda in particular, being part of this changeover, she was very keen that we kept the charity going and that we learned to work together in harmony and take responsibility together for our funds. But what are we now? We're a network, and we're students and teachers, and we're scattered in lots of different countries. We've got several different countries together just for this satsang. And people function independently, they devote what they feel they can in donations. And coming together becomes ever more important, I think, when we're scattered in that way. And one of the things I thought of, it was something that touched me very deeply when I first read it. It's an ancient text from Kashmir called the Triadic Heart of Shiva. And it talks about the way something special happens when we come together to practice yoga. And it's described symbolically in that book as Shiva manifesting among us. But I would really invite you to think about what is that experience when you come together, whether it's in Zoom or whether it's in person, and you actually chant together and you talk about what's on your mind. What is that something special that happens between us? Because that is part of the idea of staying together. So we're going to chant now, and as we chant, you might want to have in your mind, what do those words mean? Stay together and love each other. What do they mean to you now? What comes to your mind? What is your idea? Om Tara Tu Chare Tu Re So. Om Tara Tu Chare Tu Re So. For Radhananda. Om Tara Tu Chare Tu Re So. 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 For all those who helped to bring this together for today. Om Tara Tu Chare Tu Re So. 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 For everyone who helps in the world. Om Tara Tu Chare Tu Re So. 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 For family and friends. Om Tara Tu Chare Tu Re So. Om Tara Tu Chare Tu Re So. Om humming. Feel the vibration. And as you sit there with your eyes closed, see a flame. Does it consume anything, or is something emerging from it? Now visualize your heart center. Imagine a blue flame on an altar there. Approach the altar and take the flame. And now place it on the heads of friends and loved ones. What comes to your mind? What is your word? And just say your word quietly in your mind out to all of us, and we'll tune in and just be receptive to these words of love. So I wanted to talk a little bit during the Satsang about where we are today and about how Swami Radha's message to us might still apply. And I mentioned before the mantra how our network has grown and evolved and we've experimented. For some of you, it might feel that you're a long way, the ashram's a long way from you, and for us, Europe may be a long way, but in another way, here we are, we're together. It's possible. We're all together. You're all in the temple with us. And we're with you. And so things are different. Things have changed. And we're moving forward with that. And looking back on the year and how it's been quite an amazing year in many ways. Back in the summer of 2019, there were so many students here from Europe. Jane brought a party of 4 people from England, and Neve and Hazel and Danny were here from Ireland, and Alina from Latvia, and Charlene from France, and Hannah from England. And then later on in the year, Carol, Tasha and Micah came, and they arrived before the lockdown, and they stayed into the summer. And meanwhile, Hazel and Neem and Charlene and Alina all joined the YDC for 2020, and they stayed on and did the teacher training. So some have returned to England. Most of them have returned to Europe in one place or another. And we want to be able to welcome them and hope that they'll flourish. And of course, I did a tour, and my tour was cut short. I didn't get to Hungary, I didn't get to Ireland, and there were several places in Germany and England that I meant to visit and didn't get to. But even so, I managed to meet something like 600 people, which when you think of how we work in small groups and what we do is quite intimate and personal, that's quite something to think about. You know, that was in England and Germany and Portugal. And something a little over half of those people were quite new to the teachings. And we're just very, very fortunate to have these teachings because it brings the light and encouragement and hope to people and gives them a direction. So just going back to Swami Radha's last message, if you will grant me one last wish, it is this: stay together, love one another, support this work and the ashram in the spirit it was started. So then the question is, well, what does supporting the work, what does that mean? Because it can mean a million things to people. And I can say straight away that every one of us who's participating right now, we've got Francesca behind the screen here, looking after the tech, and there's the three of us, and then there's, I don't know, maybe 18 of you. I'm not sure how many there are on the screen. That's what we're doing. We're supporting the work and we're supporting one another. Attending satsangs, classes, going to online groups and workshops. Every form of participation is exactly that. It is supporting the work. And setting up this weekend is such a great example, those who were involved in setting it up and getting the Zoom going and inviting people out. And then in the background, there's kind of invisible work. So Devani and Hilary and Karen and Javita and Judith all help to just manage the money. And nobody sees that. It's very unselfish, invisible work, you know. And then when I come on tour or anybody goes on tour, it means having a teacher, or it doesn't have to be a teacher. It can just be someone who just says, come to my place. I'll invite my friends. I'll invite the people I know. All of that is supporting. And whenever we encourage or inspire people to come to the ashram, again, we're supporting, aren't we? And I think there's a subtler level, because as we do the work, and this is probably the most important level, as we do the work, we're letting the light into ourselves, and then we go out and we radiate that. We radiate that to others. And so that's the way we can help them, not even in a deliberate way, but we just do. And then there are other things that we do, like keep the website in shape, contribute to the Facebook, even just a little note from you saying how you're doing. It's a contribution, you know, and people go, oh, there's Alina, there's Hazel, there's Devani, they're doing okay, good to see them. And then there's all the less formal hookups that we make with one another. But what's really important under all of this is just how we do it, how we work towards promoting harmony, acceptance, listening, understanding. And there's something that Shivananda, and I'm not talking about Shivananda in Rishikesh now, I'm talking about Shivananda who lives here. And it's something he's talked about a few times in satsangs, and he talks about living at the ashram is like polishing stones. And, you know, think of them in your hand and they all rub against one another. And that's what the being together is about. We rub up against one another and we get polished. Our rough edges get rubbed off. And that's why Swami Radha and Swami Radhananda wanted us, even when we can't be at the ashram, to learn to get along together. And we have some idea of what we mean by that and how we can talk to one another about it and what it means for us individually. So I'm just going to go back again to Swami Radha's last message, because she said a little bit more. If you'll grant me this one last wish, it is this: stay together, love each other, support this work and the ashram in the spirit it was started. And then she continues, granting each other the freedom to have their personal experience of God. Strengthen your faith, and you will have no need of seeking acceptance by others. Open the doors of your heart. Be persistent, suspend judgment, and instead try to understand. So that brings us right back to our starting question about love. And I picked out some things from Radhananda because she said quite a bit on the subject. And the first one I wanted to speak of is about facing challenges, because that is a relevant issue for this year, I think, for all of us. And this is from Kundalini. No, it's not from Kundalini. It's from the Kundalini chapter in Living the Practice. The heart, in most cultures, has the connotation of love, but it also requires courage to open. Clearing away resentments and grudges from your heart can open a space for finer feelings. At the heart, we get a glimpse of the sacred space within us, and it is here that we are born again as a spiritual aspirant. The experience of the heart, to experience the heart, you have to be strong enough to support us in our self-development, because the path offers many challenges. So, I hadn't really mentioned the challenges of the lockdown until now, and we might as well mention it. The fact that in March the yoga teachers had to move into their homes and stop going out and teaching classes, and so did the students. And everybody's life changed. And it's not just people like me who came back here, but the ashram itself has gone through a big period of adaptation from that very moment in March. It closed its doors, it cancelled its 2020 program that we'd put so much work into developing. And since then, it's been replaced by a very different and quite sustainable approach with online teaching, extended stays instead of short stays, and quarantine retreats, which are also extended stays. So it's been a busy time for us. And what I see here is like new shoots of growth and change, and this greater worldwide connectedness. I mean, this is the first time that we've had a European satsang in the temple. And it's something we can do again later, and it's something we can get better at doing, you know? And it's as if we've got this old model that we burst out of, and something that's not even seen yet is emerging. And Divine Mother somehow has an idea of where it's going, and it's for us to kind of tune into that, to find out where it's going, because we don't know. And if we look at the teachers in Europe, that's quite amazing too, how quickly people went online. And then the satsangs, bringing people together. Again, all pointing to new directions. So the last part, I just wanted to talk about the next steps, all these unknown things that we don't know where we're going, really. And I've chosen a quote from Radhananda, and she's talking to us as teachers and students, and we are all teachers and students at the same time. You can't have the one without the other, really. And it is our role, she's pointing out, to grow and evolve and to help others do the same, whether that's in a formal way or an informal way. And this is her quote. It's from a chapter called Compassionate Evolution in Living the Practice. There are many paths up the mountain offering different approaches to spiritual life. Everybody is moving towards the realization of just exactly what and who they are. There are great gurus and examples of people who can incorporate what happens on the level of daily life with what is happening on many more subtle levels. They fulfill their potential and are helpful to so many people. But isn't that what we were all born to do? To love and help others, to bring light and goodness into the world? Can we evolve to the place where world peace is possible? So, can we? Yoga gives us wonderful tools, and they allow us to help ourselves. And at this time, they allow people to manage their stress that's coming with so much change. You know, people are facing uncertainty, there's sadness, there's grief, there's loneliness and isolation for some, and for other people, it's because you're living in a family household and you're all locked down together and you've got lots of responsibilities. So it can be very different what that experience is that we're going through. But one thing is for sure, we're all going through something. And what the teachings do is they provide a safe way to acknowledge what we're feeling and explore our difficult feelings and find our own solutions. And then from that, we can build a basis of trust and a foundation to move forward. We have to go and look at those things and voice them somehow and have a community that we can talk to, that we feel safe and comfortable to talk to. And that process of self-reflection, it takes honesty, it takes humility, and it takes recognizing just how little we know. And then that trust comes from facing ourselves courageously, and that's where we find the light. And that really is our work together. That's our true work together. You know, I've been teaching now for over 30 years. I actually counted up when I wrote this down. And but I kind of want to say that it's never been more evident to me how important what we have is as it is now, and making ourselves available. And people are so grateful, you know, to what they can get from us. So I think what we can do, everybody can stand up now. And then just bring yourself into tadasana and stand with your feet firm on the ground. Lengthen up through your body. Relax your shoulders. You may want to turn your head a few times to relax your neck. Take a few deeper breaths. And again, go back to that standing firm and standing tall inside yourself. And ask yourself, where do you begin? When things are constantly changing, how can you stay grounded? Where am I in my life right now? And what can I offer back to life? And when you're ready, you can just sit back down again. Now I want to give the very last words for today, from this talk at any rate, to Swami Radhananda about how we can encourage one another. And it doesn't matter how much or little we think we know. And what she says is the most powerful love is to support and encourage others towards their highest potential. When there's an imbalance in the world, and we want to take the steps to move forward, it is love that will protect us. There is nothing so powerful as being able to see the divine in everyone you meet. To offer love and light, to envision people living in peace within themselves and with their neighbours, and to send out loving kindness to all.
This is the first time that I get to do this, so that's a good experience and honor. We've almost been practicing virtual prasad here because the situation hasn't allowed us to get the actual sweet into our hands, so we are very well practiced and we can do it together now. So take a moment, maybe close your eyes, and bring yourself back to the beginning of your day, where it started. Walk yourself through it and see where you found this element of grace in your day, where you found this feeling of love, of gratitude, of the divine being present in whatever the day brought to you. Then reach your hands out in front of you, form a little cup, and place that sweet sensation of whatever comes to your mind within your hand. Maybe it fits in there, maybe it's so big it floats over. Take a minute, open up your heart, and bring this sensation into your heart, into your being with gratitude.
Is the beat of my mind on the blue lotus feet of my divine mother, and close is the beat of my mind on the blue lotus feet of my divine mother, divine mother, my divine mother. Divine Mother, my Divine Mother, Divine Mother, my Divine Mother, Divine Mother, my Divine Mother, and rose is the bee of my mind, on the blue lotus feet of my Divine Mother. And rose is the bee of my mind, on the blue loudest feet of my divine mother.